It's Mac and Perry in the place. Da-na-na-na. Mac and Perry
go live to create.
Da-na-na-na. Mac and Perry invite you to stay.
Welcome to Tell Story Hive's on location here in Medicine Hat at Unlimited Characters Bookstore. I'm Michael.
I'm Pam Robertson Rivet.
Great, yeah. Well, thanks so much for meeting with us, Pam. I'm really excited to hear about your creative practice and learn all about you. We're going to do some icebreaker games and get to know you a bit, but before that, maybe if you want to just give us an overview of your artistic practice, what sort of art do you do?
I'm a writer, and I write for nonfiction, doing teaching materials and educational stuff, and I love to write fiction.
Nice. Perfect. Great. Very succinct. I like it. Yeah. So for this first segment, we call it the icebreakers. We just have some games to kind of get to know you. The first one we do is some trivia. How are you at trivia?
Usually my kids are around to bail me out in trivia, so
Okay.
this will be really interesting.
Yeah, they're not here, I don't think. So
No, they're not.
Yeah. It's just Medicine Hat trivia. It's like very local. It's very specific. Hopefully, it's nothing too big a deal. But we also will have some trivia that you'll be asking us, so it'll be all good. All right, I will ask you the first trivia question. Very, very simple. Very first one. Medicine Hat is located along which river? Is it A, the Milk River, B, the South Saskatchewan River, C, the Old Man River, or D, the Bow River?
B, the South Saskatchewan River.
Easy. There we go. Yeah. Nice. Good stuff. And Daniel also has a trivia. No, actually, no, we're going to do the other one first. So,
Okay.
so now, if you'd like, you can pick one of those sheets. Let's do, why don't you ask me a question? So, yeah, the first one on the top. So that'll be a question about Daniel for me.
Oh, okay.
We'll
Let's
see if I know him very well. I do.
Let's see what you know.
Okay.
During his 2024 playwriting residency, Daniel collaborated with how many Calgary writers? A, 8, B is 4, C, 13, or D is 3?
Yes, I remember him being in Calgary. I would say, I'm going to guess, if I had to guess, I would say 8.
You're correct.
Yes! I knew it the whole time. Nice, good stuff. All right, and now, so Daniel has a trivia question, another Medicine Hat trivia question for you. Very simple, nothing too
All right.
hard. Take it away, Daniel.
Answers. I'm going to go with A, the Northwest Mountains. Do you want to know something kind of interesting as an aside?
Mhm.
My great-grandfather was a scout for the railway in the early 1900s, and he named this area Sunny Alberta.
Oh.
So if you've ever heard Alberta referred to as Sunny Alberta,
That was him.
it was him. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, great, we have a new piece of trivia added.
There you
Yeah,
go.
nice. Oh, perfect, yeah. All right, so we have one more trivia. Now this is a question about me for Daniel. Let's see how he does.
It's listed as top secret,
It
so I
is
think
top
it's going to be
secret.
hard.
Yeah.
Okay, so Michael's trivia. Part of my artistic practice involves sharing the history around quilting during the World Wars. When Michael was young, he was also interested in the history of these battles. And for a high school studies project on World War I, he submitted what as his final project? A monologue from Billy Bishop Goes to War. B, a short film about life in the trenches. C, a presentation on his great-grandfather's experience at the Battle of Passchendaele. Or D, a trumpet solo of The Last Post.
Oh.
That is correct. It's a short film about life in the trenches. Interesting.
All right, nice. Good stuff. All right, that's
All
the
right.
trivia. It was really easy. We mostly got them right. That's good.
Phew.
Yeah, right? pressure's off. Yeah,
That's
nice,
right.
good stuff. Yeah. So our next icebreaker game we call This or That, and with this one we just pull these things out of these little questions out of a hat, because we're a medicine hat. And it's one or the other. It's cats or dogs. It's coffee or tea. And so we just talk about it, and we see if we align, if we like those things,
All right.
or not. And it's fun. So yeah, I'll get you to do the honors to pull the first question, and I will answer it. And Daniel might answer too. Sometimes I will direct it
All
to him.
right.
But
Shoes or sandals?
well, good question. Yeah, like I would say generally, I would say shoes. Yeah, I do lots of hiking, and I like to go out to nature, and yeah, sure, the odd time I might be on a beach or something, but I would probably be wearing shoes most of the time.
All
yeah,
right.
I also like winter activities, so give me some
Excellent.
shoes.
All right.
Yourself?
I am a shoe person as well, except in the summer I have sparkly sandals, and I really like wearing those. They're totally inappropriate for the winter, so mostly shoes.
Yeah, fair, good stuff. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I like sandals too, but if I had to choose,
Yeah.
those are the most practical. Like some of my family, they wear like sandals like almost year round, and it's a bit silly.
I have family that does that too.
Right.
Shorts and sandals,
Yeah, yeah. It's like
even when it's minus 30.
wear socks, and I
Yeah.
mean, whatever. It's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah, nice. So maybe I'll throw it to Daniel if he has a preference between sandals or shoes. Great. It's not a difficult question
Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
right.
All right, I will pick one. All right. Study or cram, if you had to choose.
Oh gosh. I mean, in my logical head, I know I should be studying, but I've done a lot of cramming.
Yeah.
So, and then the problem is you cram, you write the exam, and you forget everything. So I can probably maintain things better longer if I study, but in real life, there was a lot of cramming.
Cramming,
Yeah.
yeah. Fair enough, yeah. There's no wrong answer. These are just your
Yeah.
answers, yeah. Yeah, I would say generally I'd be a study person. I was never good at the like last minute, stay up all night and finish the assignment or study for the exam. Or if I have a project, I need a bit of that time pressure to be like, all right, things are getting closer. I can't be doing it too far out, but I do like to start early and be relaxed, and that helps me a lot. So that's more my style. Why don't I throw it back to Daniel, because he looks like he's able to answer. Would you rather study or cram? Fair enough, yeah. And I think sometimes you do need that little bit of pressure, and that helps people get lots done. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Or it also helps you close off the time. You know how when you have all this time in front of you, then instead of doing 10 hours worth of studying in 10 hours, you do 10 hours in 40 hours. It just kind of drags out. So.
Yeah. Or sometimes, like they say, yeah, you fill the time you have, so maybe
Yeah.
you just, you don't really need to spend that much time.
Yeah.
And you just end up doing that because you have the time. So there we go. All right, so let's pick another this or that question.
All right, here we go. It's a big one. This will tell me something about you. Sweet or salty?
It's a good one. It's tricky because I like both. But I would say if I had to choose, if it's like you could never have a sweet or salty again, one or the other, I'd probably choose like salty, a little savory. Yeah, I like a lot of savory things. I like some sweet things, but I could probably do without that. More and more, I'm like I like a little bit like dark chocolate after a meal. But I'm going to like darker chocolate, like 85%. So it's like not super sweet. I'm like trying to get to a really dark, bitter chocolate. Same with the coffee. Like, it used to be sweeter, but now it's more bitter. So I would say savory, salty for me. And yourself?
I am kind of a sweet person. I mean, not just my personality, don't get me wrong. But I love cooking and I love playing in the kitchen. And so I typically go to the fruit. And and I do love a nice chocolate. Yeah,
nice. What sort of stuff do you make in the kitchen usually?
Right now, everything is about cooler weather. And so soups and stews and that kind of thing. I'm playing a lot with Yorkshire pudding in the last several weeks, trying to get that perfect pudding. And What else are we playing with? Oh, we're changing up our sausage rolls this year.
Mm.
So my family has always done a sausage roll that's a really tasty sausage in a puff pastry. But I was flipping around online one day and taking the sausage and laid it in with a little bit of cranberry sauce and then a little bit of dressing. And I thought, that's like a whole lunch right there in your hand. So
Oh, nice, nice.
try this.
Yeah. What makes a great Yorkshire pudding?
It's nice and crispy on the outside and only a little bit of the soft stuff maybe in the bottom.
Okay.
I like a good crispy one that holds the gravy in that nice little cup shape. Yeah.
Nice, yeah, that's great.
I see you nodding there.
Yes, Daniel can agree with that. Nice. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I was just curious about those things.
Everybody has their
Right?
style. Yeah, it's a good question to
Yeah,
ask.
sounds like your cooking's very seasonal too. It's like,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, I guess this would be a really good time to be cooking. It's Christmas time. And
Yeah, and I have a little more time because I'm not doing the outside stuff, so I can play in the kitchen a bit more.
there we go. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw it back to Daniel just because I've been doing that a lot. Seems like he's able to. Yeah, savory or sweet? Nice, nice. Yeah, yeah.
Good.
Although I know Daniel's he's nicknamed things like sweet and salty. He likes a little bit of both.
A little of
A
everything.
little bit of salty
Yeah.
British, a little bit of sweet Canadian.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. All right, I guess I picked that one. Did you pick that one? I can't remember anymore.
I picked that one.
Yeah, all right, I'll pick
you're
one.
next.
We'll do one more, and then we'll move on to our Tumbling Towers game. So the last, this or that. All right. Okay, just generally eclectic or modern, if you had to choose a style, I guess.
I'm pretty eclectic.
Yeah.
I tried to be more modern, and I had cleaned out some of my old stuff in the house even to make it more of an open space. But there are little things that I love to have little collections of, which is pretty eclectic.
Great, yeah. Get no wrong answers. So,
Yeah.
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 What's kind of like one item that you can think of that's like memorable in your eclectic stuff?
Like, I have a bit of a crystal collection. So I have pieces of crystal that came from my grandmother. I have a couple of things from my mom. And once people knew I was kind of holding on to these things, and I've got a couple of more things. And it's the same with my books that are on my bookshelf. Like, I read almost anything and everything. And then when I look at my bookshelf, I think there's no way I could organize that by color or some of the sort of more modern ways of doing that kind of thing. There's everything in there. There are even kids' books in there.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, yeah. Probably makes you a better writer and author. And to kind of,
I think it helps.
I would say, yeah,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, for myself, I would say more modern. My house design is very kind of that Scandinavian style, kind of sleek and modern, and I kind of like that look, and like things to be relatively the same and not very eclectic. But,
So do you have particular colors that you gravitate to in your house?
yeah, and the house, the design's kind of like there's like lots of white, there's lots of black, and then there's also like lots of wood tones. So yeah, those kind of things. They're very neutral generally. Yeah, with a little splash of color once in a while. So yeah, that would be more me. Nice. All right, we will move on to our Tumbling Towers.
All right.
Have you played Tumbling Towers before?
I have not.
Oh, okay.
But I've seen you play it on your YouTube videos.
So okay, yeah. Well, if you haven't before, it's very simple. So we just pull out these tiles. With that, you can kind of poke around and see what's loose. And technically, you can't pull from the top three. And then we put them on top, and then you make a taller tower. We don't get very far ever. But yeah, each number corresponds, as you would have seen, to a question, open-ended question. And so I'll just let you start because I just asked that last one, I think. So
All
if
right.
you want to pull out a tile, and we'll see what question we get.
This one looks like it's in a good spot.
Okay,
Ooh,
maybe not.
maybe not.
You don't have to. Okay, you can put it back.
I don't want a whole thing to fall off.
Yeah, not on the first go.
No.
That would not be good.
Let's maybe try this one.
Sure. Yeah, just poke around.
This was practically my favorite age.
There's only
Not really.
54 of them.
It's going to go.
Yeah, you can only use one hand.
I can stick my tongue out, and that'll help.
Oh man. Okay, good.
Oh, look at that.
41.
41.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Ooh, this would be a good question as an author. If you could visit a fictional world, where would you go?
I would love to go to the Tolkien world of Lord of the Rings. I think that would be absolutely sensational. It's mostly in New Zealand, and I've never been there. It looks misty and magical, and it just looks like it's waiting for stories to pop out at you. And yeah, I would love to do that.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, for me, what first comes to mind, I'm not sure why, but I just think of like Peter Pan, Neverland. And that seems like a cool place to never grow up. So I would probably go to Neverland and fight some pirates. Because I always like when I was younger, pirate stories and all that good stuff. So
that's perfect.
Yeah, maybe I'll throw it back to Daniel if he's able to. If you can think of any fictional world you would like to go, and it's okay if there are repeats. I figured that would be the case, and that's great. Again, no wrong answers. We're just learning about each other. Good stuff. All right, I will pull a tile. Oh boy,
good luck.
Oh, actually, that one looks good.
Oh yeah.
All right,
Ooh.
25.
Oh right. Go up.
What do you wish you had more of? Anything come to mind?
Time.
Yeah.
I think as I get older, that's one of the things I notice. And my dad warned me this was going to happen, and I didn't believe him. Because when you're young, it seems like sometimes the days just drag on forever and there's not enough happening. And then as I've had my own kids and as my career has sped up, the days seem to go faster and faster and faster. And so I don't know that there's enough time to do all the things or visit all the places that I would like to go.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great answer. Yeah, I think for myself, I don't want to take your answer because that's a good answer. What would I want more of? I don't want more cats. We have 4 cats now. We used to have 3, now we have 4. We don't need more cats. I would say a dog, but then we can't have a dog with the cats. That wouldn't work. I would say maybe just more, maybe more travel this time is what I'm going to say. So go see some more places.
Where would you go first?
Yeah, where would I go? See more of Europe. So I haven't been to many of the European countries. So go tour around Europe some more.
There you go.
That'd be
Grab a
fun.
backpack and away you go.
There we go. Got all the time in the world. I guess, hey, I'm going to throw it back to Daniel. Why not? Because I've been doing that a whole bunch today. If Daniel, what is something that you wish that you had more time on? Or more? That's great. Yeah. Maybe there'll be some chats in the live chat, and people will want to connect with you. I don't know.
Well, and you guys are in the perfect business to be connecting with people. So
True.
it seems like you're in the right area.
We have connected with a lot of people through this project, so it's been good. Yeah, nice. All right, so let's go. We'll go at least one more, maybe 2. Your turn again, Pam.
Okay, not intimidated.
Yeah, can poke around if there's
I
a
like
loose
the way
one.
you kind of tapped it to see if there was something.
Yeah, you really got to check first. No. Okay. We're getting there.
This is really, really
precarious.
precarious.
Yeah.
It might. Well, it was 45.
45. It's all
I'll
good.
put that on the top of the stack.
There we go. Yeah. We'd never played before, so it's okay. Nice. All right. Oh, this is a tough one. I don't know why we ask people this one. What would the title of your autobiography be? If you're a writer, maybe you thought about this. Sorry for the hard question at the end. But.
I haven't thought about this. What would it be? The Bricks Tumbled?
stumbled.
The end of the tower. No, let's see. Well, damn it, she tried.
There we go. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I think that would be a good title.
There we go. Yeah, very catchy. I like it. Nice. I guess I will answer as well. That's only fair. We should really change this question. I would say Michael. Oh yeah, yours is really good that he tried. That she tried. Where is he now? It would just be, and then like, where is he? Oh, he's still in Lethbridge. Yeah. Nice. We may have to change that question. It's a tough one for people, but it's a fun one if you have thought about it. Nice. Yeah, well, that is our segment. It's been fun to kind of get to know you a little bit through this icebreaker game. But I'm also curious to learn about your artistic practice in the next segment. So this has been Tell a Story Hives on location here in Medicine Hat at Unlimited Character Bookstore. I'm Michael.
Pam Robertson Rivet.
And we'll be right back. Welcome back to Tell a Story Hives on location here in Medicine Hat at Unlimited Characters Bookstore. I'm Michael.
Pam Robertson Rivet.
Great. Yeah, well, I enjoyed the first segment with you, Pam. I always like that icebreaker, always fun. It's good questions, good answers.
Tons of fun.
Right?
I really enjoyed it.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Even though we had some hard questions sometimes. Yeah.
I got one wrong too.
No.
but
Yeah,
that's
the
part of
trivia.
the process. It's okay.
Right. Yeah. I should say there are no wrong answers, even with the trivia, but there are wrong answers there. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Well, this segment we kind of call the interview, and with that, we really want to learn about your artistic practice, your writing journey, kind of where you started, how you got there, where you're headed, all that good stuff. Yeah. I guess like similar to the beginning of the first segment, if you want to maybe just tell us about your artistic practice briefly.
My writer started in school, and I loved writing. I thought it was really fun. I liked looking at my handwriting. And in the 6th grade, my teacher came to me and said he wanted me to ghostwrite a story. And I said, ghostwrite a story? What is that? I'd never heard that expression before. And so he explained that you write a story and your name's not on it and other people can read it. And he was collecting material for teaching with. And so I ghost wrote this story, and it kind of triggered some thoughts about writing. And it was a long time before I came back to writing, but that stayed with me. And so when I first started writing for pay, I was creating instructional materials for a company in Nova Scotia, and basically ghostwriting, creating course material and writing case studies and just doing all kinds of stuff that was fulfilling that start from the 6th grade to many years later. And I enjoy writing a lot. Like I like to grab a cup of tea in the morning and I sit down at my computer and I have a look at what my goals are for that day in terms of what I need to write. And then I start plugging away at it and take a break and get some more tea and get outside for a little while and then get back to it. So I can write essentially all day off and on working on a specific project.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it sounds like you got a great process going on. That's great. Yeah, I want to go back, all the way back, why not, to that, the 6th grade. That's really interesting. So your teacher approaches you to be a ghost writer. Like, do you remember like what the story was about? It was a fictional story, I assume?
It was a fictional story, and I was writing on foolscap paper. So in those days, we actually were in kind of an experimental classroom. We were in an open area beside the library, and there were 3 6th grade classes around this large square. So it was quite a noisy, interesting, very creative space, actually. And so when he asked me to ghostwrite this story for a language arts project, and it would be a fiction story, had to have a beginning and a middle and an end, and that was really the only criteria. And I think it needed to fit on 3 foolscap sheets of paper, which is 8.5 by 14 inches for people that aren't familiar with that. And so, yeah, I got to write this story, and it was fun. I don't remember what it was about. I have no idea how long he used it for, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just seems like a very unique opportunity as a young person, and
yeah,
for that really teacher to see your potential there.
Yeah, it was really an exciting kind of start to things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like at what point, like, so then you said you did more of that like technical writing, again as a ghost writer. How old would you have been at that point in your life?
So I had my kids first, and then I went to university and did an education degree. And I didn't know what I wanted to do after that because there weren't a lot of teaching jobs. So I continued with university, did a master's degree in counseling, and then I did a doctorate in what they call interdisciplinary studies, which means you can do everything or anything. So I was looking for work at one time, and this company was looking for writers to create courseware for early educational software. And I applied and got the job and learned a whole bunch more about being an instructional designer and how to lay things out so that people are learning from what you're presenting. And so that started in about 2008. that I started doing instructional design, and I finished that up after 15 years. So I did that for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Quite a while, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very interesting type of work because I got to learn everything I was writing about. I wrote a lot of what they call soft skills courses, so things about communication skills, leadership, supervision, career design. What else did we do? Training, like to help adults working in a corporate workspace who were designated trainers, then they would have the information they needed. So there was a whole mixture of things, and I wrote nearly 200 courses working for them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
was really good.
many questions about that and some other things, but I think I'll go with my first train of thought. Along with that work you were doing, like what comes to mind is like, I think of like an author, and we'll talk about your fiction writing and other areas of interest, but I feel like with that, especially being like essentially a ghostwriter and writing those courses, like perhaps like you wouldn't get a lot of like reader feedback, or I'm assuming like you maybe wouldn't know how that impacted people. Like, was that the case, or did you get any sort of?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So we actually taught some of those courses in order to beta test them.
Okay.
So taking them into community. And we also were writing them for translation. So they would be translated into Spanish in particular, and then Arabic at one time. So I wrote a course on customer service that was taught in Oman during a FIFA competition. And those people would give us feedback because culturally you have to be extremely aware of so many things. How do you receive hello from somebody? How do you ask the small stuff? Because a lot of cultures, as Canadians, we're pretty good about the small talk. Hey, how are you doing? Even though you're not really asking, how are you doing? Or thank you, or sorry, or all of those kinds of social cues and nuances. Other countries do not use those in the same sort of manner as we do. So we did get some feedback to be able to incorporate those things and make them meaningful, and also to help them entertain clients from other countries in their country.
Oh, that sounds like a great experience. Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I just want to go back a little bit with like you've done a lot of education as well. Maybe we can just start with like your ed degree, or if you want to just speak more generally, like how some of the education that you've done, like has that influenced your writing?
Absolutely. So when I did my education degree, one of the things that I studied was linguistics, which is the study of language and how it's constructed and how it goes together. And I was also studying how to teach English as a second or supplementary language. So that's something that, especially early on, was a background for a lot of the writing that I was doing. And even the fiction writing now, I sometimes look at it and think, okay, maybe I can simplify that a little bit, or maybe I can make that a little more satisfying for somebody who's reading, whose background is not English. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there are Canadian sort of isms that I want in my stories that go in there and are left for people maybe to think about or talk about later, or send me an email. Yeah.
Oh, great. Anything from like your counseling education, like listening, or I don't know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the counseling was very much focused on careers. So I'm always asking people, oh, what are you doing with that? Like when I met you guys today and we were talking about your backgrounds, and I'm always thinking about how people can make a living at whatever they're doing. Is it fulfilling for them? Are they excited by it? Because we've become much more focused on, are people satisfied in their work, or are they going to work to make a living and gaining satisfaction maybe from a hobby or something else?
Oh yeah, that's all very applicable. Absolutely, yeah. Nice. Okay, so we'll go back to, so you, for 15 years you were doing that, the course writing. Kind of, yeah, I guess in your journey as a writer, what came next?
I won a publishing prize. So while I was doing all that fiction or nonfiction writing, I finished my doctorate in interdisciplinary studies. I had developed a couple of things that I thought these should really be in a book. And I went to a conference and I won this publishing prize, and I thought, oh, cool, there's the book. So the book was called Live Inspired, and it's a manual for adults to do the career counseling pieces maybe that they never got. And that really got me thinking about self-publishing and what the opportunities are for that. And I had started building a novel in the back of my head, and I finally had time to write it because I was finished that PhD. And so I started writing what eventually became Maggie's Song, which is a novel that stands on its own. And then there was this huge fire in northern Alberta, and that started feeding the spy series in the back of my head because we never really knew what started that fire. But what could have started that fire? What was the potential for that? And this character that also was really heavily on my mind.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting. Yeah. And that's that series of books called Border Pieces, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess we can talk more about that, the spy series. Tell me about the process of writing those books. But I guess let's start with the first one. What was that like?
That was really, really fun. And so I had been so busy with so much of the nonfiction work and the instructional design. And in my free time, I was writing like scenes and little snippets and little ideas of things that I thought these really need to go in a book. And so I just started building. And I wanted a character who was a very strong woman, but also maybe a little bit relatable for people who are also in my circles. So she's in her mid-40s. She drinks too much. She works and has worked as a spy for her whole career, so she really doesn't know sometimes some of the social things or some of the other nuances we look at, but she's curious about things and she's interested in things. And because of her age, she's also in perimenopause, so she sweats at unbelievable times and deals with some of those things throughout the course of that story. And she gets into trouble and she makes decisions she might make differently if they weren't so rushed, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, sounds great. Yeah. And it sounds like you very much like either had an idea ahead of time or know your audience, that's kind of the people you wanted to reach, right?
Yeah. And I surveyed some of my friends too to ask them, because at that time when I was working on that, there were these big tomes that were coming out by George R.R. Martin or Diana Gabaldon. They're massive reads that take a real commitment to get through. And I thought, okay, do I put all of her into one book? And the people that I was surveying said, no, I need a quick read. I want a few hours, and then I have to move on to other things. So I created it as a series. And you can read each book on its own. You don't have to read the whole series. But there is a flow and a continuity through the overarching story through the whole series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems very, very interesting. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get into more of those details about that one itself, probably in the showcase. And so you talked about like, you were interested initially with like self-publishing. I guess what's that experience been like for you to, I assume, self-publish your books?
It's been quite an adventure because the business skills that have to come along with that were things that I hadn't done before. I'd worked on contract for a long time, so I knew how to do a lot of that stuff. But when you're self-publishing and you're responsible for finding the editorial team, you're responsible for the marketing, you're responsible for ultimately the cover design. So the first covers that I had for those books actually couldn't be advertised on some of the book sites because I had a very common Canadian pistol and a passport, and that gun they won't put on things like Apple Books from an independent publisher. Some of the big writers do have those things on their covers. So there was all kinds of learning, and there was a couple of podcasts actually that I watched that taught a lot or listened to at that time that taught a lot about the self-publishing aspect, how to do advertising. Like you have to become a book publisher in addition to creating a really compelling story that people are going to want to pick up.
Yeah. And did you kind of enjoy that aspect of the business, we'll say?
Yeah. The negative side to it for me was that I have ADHD, and I tend to really tunnel into things, and so I'm not writing today because I'm working on the marketing piece, and oh my gosh, for some reason this took me 3 days to figure out, and now I have to get back and do the other things, and it all has to be done and it all has to happen, and so that's a challenge.
Yeah, finding the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that example of like the book cover, I assume like you designed it and then tried to put it out, and that's when you found out that it couldn't be, right?
Yeah, well, and I actually had paid a designer because that was something at that time I knew I couldn't do, and so they didn't know either, unfortunately, and so we were both learning because self-publishing at that point was it was probably about 8 years or 10 years into it at that point, which sounds like a long time, but there's so much that happens in technology within that period of time that, it's really tough. So prior to that, lots of people were using one particular bookseller, loading up everything there, and then from them it would be distributed to things like Apple Books and Amazon and that kind of stuff. And now we don't have to have that overarching company. We can just go direct, but boy, if you're going direct, you better know what the heck you're doing and read all the terms and conditions, because there's a lot of small details that apply.
Yeah, so like you have to also just keep up with those changes. And wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you wrote Maggie's Song. You have border pieces. There was 4 in that series, and so you wrote that over a number of years. I guess so. In your writing journey, I guess what came next?
COVID, actually. And so the last 2 books in the series came out during that period of time. And I wasn't doing any of the instructional design work. So I had a lot more time to kind of dive into the creativity of writing and really broaden my scope as a writer. And we had moved here to Medicine Hat by then. And I connected with a book club here, a writers club, that was really nice to have that community. And because writing is very isolated. You normally are in your house or in your basement, or some people will go to a coffee shop, and of course for me, I'm very happy writing at home. I have my favorite mug, I have my teapot or whatever going on, and so that period of time was very isolating. So having the writers club and people all of a sudden to talk to and ask about, hey, what are you working on? Or somebody emails you a chapter and says, I'm stuck. Can you have a look at this? That's always really, really fun.
Yeah, that makes sense to have that community, especially, like I said, if it's a more of a solitary practice. So. Yeah. And then and I guess, I don't know, did any new ideas come out of that group that you were kind of throwing around?
I wouldn't say new ideas. Really what we focus on is sharing our writing and looking at what we're learning as human beings and what we take from the human kind of experience and bring into our writing. That's kind of a big part of it for me. Like, I love to people watch, and I love to chat with people and find out, what's their life like and what's happening today, or what's going on. My husband and I chuckle all the time because I'll say to him, oh, what's going on with so-and-so? Maybe somebody at work went on a trip, or they've had a grandchild or something like that. And he'll say, I don't know, because they don't ask each other that kind of stuff. And so I'm more likely to go up to somebody and say, it's really wonderful to see you. What happened with, something? And I don't know if that's partly my background through the counseling and the connecting there, or it's because I'm writing and I'm curious, because I can then draw a little thing and say, can I use that in my book? Because I'd really love to use that in my book. And there are a lot of real events that are within these books that are sort of taken maybe out of the news and changed a little bit, or we had some great skeletons in my family closet, and during the pandemic especially, my husband and I were doing a lot of ancestry and genealogy research, so you take a little glimmer over there, like when you're diving into military records of soldiers that went here or there, and then you read the records and you find out they got thrown into the brig for a couple of days because they reached around a corner and stole a beer bottle. Like just things that are real, actual things. I love pulling things out of the old newspapers, so I have a subscription to newspapers.com because they put every detail in their newspaper stories. When you read those old newspapers and maybe there's a court case or something going on, like absolutely every detail is in there. Whereas now, you know, there's maybe a couple of lines. Even the old obituaries, you know, they link you to every person in that family, who they were, where they lived, how much money was in their estate. There's so much interesting information when you read somebody's died and they had 17 pounds, because these were a lot of English stories, in their bank account. Well, what happened with that? Like, it's such a tiny detail that then you can use and expand on and just have some fun. So.
Yeah, I love that you're using that in your writing, and that's part of your process and personality, and that's great. And that kind of makes me think of another element I wanted to talk about along that research and history side. I understand like part of your writing practice has more recently involved like the history of the World Wars and quilting. Maybe tell me a bit about that.
So I served in the military. A lot of members in my family served, and partly it was doing the genealogy and looking at what's there. And then I also quilt. And I started out quilting for veterans and making quilts for people who'd been injured as a part of their service. And that sort of connected me to this history that we have of volunteering and quilting and providing comfort to people. And then I found out how many quilts that Canadians had made, especially during the Second World War, because we were counting them very carefully at that point, and all of the other things that were sent from Canada to Britain, mainly, during the war. And there was a research group that was involved in, they had found some of the Second World War quilts that were like 80 years old that they'd been collecting and stuff, and they wanted to return them to Canada. So I kind of got involved in helping make some of those connections and telling the stories of these quilts, because my dad was a kid during the Second World War and he had one of those quilts. And so he had some great stories about sort of being 6 years old and in the war, and they weren't just getting quilts, they got his first long pants at that time. So all of these stories are coming at me, and I wanted to record them and save them. And then I started looking at Canadian women and their experience during that time, because one of the trivia question answers was Billy Bishop. And Billy Bishop was a famous Canadian World War I flying ace, pretty remarkable history. But his wife is the standout for me. And so I did some research on her because she had coordinated the making of a fundraising quilt during the Second World War. And her ability to sell the tickets for that quilt and raise interest was helped along by her husband, partly, because he was flying back and forth to England and collecting names to put in this quilt. So Winston Churchill's signature is in that quilt, Bing Crosby, a whole bunch of entertainers, Lucille Ball, and Margaret Bishop gathered these signatures and had them embroidered for this quilt. And she was the granddaughter of Timothy Eaton, who was the founder of the Eaton's stores. And so they toured, when it took 2 years to make that quilt. And then they toured it across Canada selling tickets on it to raise money. And then I just love this part of the story. The lady who won that quilt would charge her friends money to come to her house so they could see it, and that was another way to raise money for the war effort. So that was the biggest, most successful quilt fundraiser of that period of time. But people aren't aware of that stuff. And the quilt actually hangs in a museum in Winnipeg because that's where the lady lived who won the quilt. And I just wish more people knew about it because it connects them to a piece of history, and that's part of what I'm writing about too. And I go tell those stories at historical societies or legions or groups of quilters or whoever wants to hear it, because it's just a way of bringing that history alive for people. And when they hear about some of the people who signed that quilt, they're like, oh, really? That's cool. Like, who was that person? And it also fascinated me that, like many Canadian women who do things, she died in obscurity. Billy Bishop, her husband, died quite young, and she remarried and developed emphysema and died in Bermuda. So I had reached out to her grandkids to let them know I was researching this quilt and what I wanted to do, and they didn't know that piece of her history. So it's just cool to bring that alive for them too, and say, you know, now for your kids, this is what one of your ancestors has done and how cool it was, because they all know who Billy Bishop was, and now they know a little bit about her.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm so glad that you're able to share that. What a great story. Yeah, and I'm actually surprised that her family didn't really know about that either. Yeah.
There's not really a book about her. There's not, you know, there are all these little newspaper snippets about how many tickets were sold, and there are newspaper stories. So by bringing that together into one story, for me, that says, okay, this is sort of everything I can capture about her, and then to be able to share it with everybody who's interested. Just to keep it alive. And she's not the only one. There were other women who were just doing some really cool stuff. There was one woman in Saskatchewan. It took me about 2 weeks to find her maiden name, because everything she was referred to was Mrs. and her husband's initials and her last name, right? So it was just really hard. Also died in obscurity, unfortunately, but also just fascinating history and the amount of work they did during that period of time. So that's my passion project area.
Yeah, I can tell you're very passionate about it. Yeah. And I love that you're bringing that part of the Second World War and maybe the First World War history to life that, people maybe wouldn't have thought of. And it sounds like when you described like Margaret's blanket, like, that's like a big deal if you're like touring this thing around. And if I remember correctly, like it sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars in today's money, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. When you look at it in today's money, it was like $250,000 worth of tickets.
Yeah.
And now if we're raffling a quilt somewhere, we're lucky if we can make $1,500 or $2,000 worth of tickets. So it's an incredible achievement.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. And I, you understand, like you were kind of, like you mentioned, I think, but like you're kind of going around and talking about this project and educating people about that. Yeah, tell me a bit about that.
Well, this year is the 85th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, so there was a little bit of a bump in interest from people to learn about, what actually happened. What am I supposed to learn from that? So historical societies, museums will sometimes put on presentations, and so if they have me, so I drove up to places like Grand Prairie and the Battlefords in Saskatchewan to be able to share those stories and let people know. And I did lots online over Zoom and things like that too, to be able to just feed the curiosity from people, because they want to know, and at certain times. So I'm kind of saying, like, this is the 85th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, and it continues into next year, because some Canadians are very familiar that victory in Europe was commemorated this year, but the victory in Japan actually is next spring. So it continues on for a little bit. A lot of Canadians don't have a lot of connections with the Japan connection other than internments here in Canada. But for people in England, there were family members. I lost a grandfather, but there's also a Canadian woman who was a prisoner of war because she volunteered with the Australian Red Cross. And so the Australian Red Cross was in Singapore when it was invaded. And she ended up in this converted jail. And so there are some marvelous stories about her too, that she's a remarkable woman. So.
Oh, cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to, yeah. And so you're compiling these stories, are they going to be a book eventually, or what does that look
Or
like?
a series of essays, possibly,
Okay.
yeah, because some of the stories are longer than others and that kind of thing. The beauty of it is we're far enough away from some of that the information isn't held, so it's available through genealogical research. There's some great historical records in little towns and cities like you guys are visiting. If you go to some of the libraries here, there's these books of villages and towns in Alberta and Saskatchewan, especially, that I've looked at, that list every person who lived there and what they did. And so all of that material is available, which is much easier than finding things for current people who, might like to keep their address private and things like that. So, yeah.
Makes sense, yeah. It sounds like a very rewarding project, and maybe we might talk more about it in the showcase, but yeah, I really appreciate learning about that, yeah. Oh, that sounds great, yeah. And I think we are running out of time for this segment, so I'll just ask our kind of final question that we try to ask everyone, and that's like, how is your writing practice kind of influenced your everyday life?
My day pretty much revolves around it now because I have time that I set up for writing. I have time every week that I use for quilting, and so there's a lot about the daily schedule that revolves around that, for sure.
Okay, yeah. So it's just really part of your life. You can't separate the two. Yeah,
No.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've really enjoyed the conversation, Pam, and looking forward to the showcase.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
All right. So this has been Tell a Story Hives on location in Medicine Hat at Unlimited Characters Bookstore. I'm Michael.
Pam Robertson Rivet.
We'll be right back.
Hello and welcome to Tell a Story Hives on location in Medicine Hat at Unlimited Characters. I'm Daniel J. Perryman.
This is
Pam Robertson Rivet.
Yes, I thoroughly appreciated your icebreakers with Michael and your interview with Michael, and I just love the passion. I just got to say that first things first. I love the passion for these stories and history and just how you seem to be integrating all those things. It's really beautiful to see, and I'm so excited to dive into some of your pieces more specifically and intimately. And so I think let's just dive into the first piece, which is from Border Pieces, this one. And yeah, this is the first book in the series. And we're gonna start with the outside of the books before we dive inside. And yeah, you made the artwork for these, is that right?
Yeah, so when I initially wrote the books, I had an artist who created the covers for me, and then we found out some of the elements couldn't be put onto books that were for sale too easily, so I changed it up.
Yeah, and can you tell me a little bit about that process of switching it up and coming to these ones? And I'll kind of go through them here, but were any of them more difficult than others? Like, they're all quite thematically tied together.
They are, and they're skylines that are pulled out of the cities that are featured within the books. I had done a graphic design series of courses that helped me work within Adobe Illustrator for most of this, and Photoshop, and yeah, just had fun pulling them together and creating something new and different because we couldn't use what was old.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, you know, from that self-publishing perspective, what is that like, kind of having, I guess, control over that and autonomy, right? And being able to potentially take the time to do that and develop these. Was there anything unique about that part of it, or?
It's amazing how fast it can happen when you are self-publishing it. So if you go through traditional publishing process, the lead time is long. You know, it can be a year or 2 years before you see your book. Whereas when there's a problem, and it's the same if there's a typo on the inside, you can go into it and just update it, and it's done. It's done very, very efficiently. As long as you remember how to use the software.
Right. And then if they change it, and then get to catch up. But nice, awesome, great. And I'm super excited. We've kind of bookmarked a little piece here, and so I'll just give a read of a little bit.
Sure.
See how it sounds, and just talk about that. I'm going from here. Is that right? Just from the top.
Yes.
Awesome. Chapter 22. We're throwing us into the middle. I'm just going to see what's happening. It's a good thing I like you, or I'd have hit. Let's start again. 1 second. It's a good thing I like you, or I'd have to hit you, Morgan said, rubbing her arm at the end of her second session with Rebecca. That hurts like hell. The petite physiotherapist looked at her. I see this all the time, honey. Someone gets surgery and the doctor says great. It all looks fine. They want you to rest so your stitches and all that stay together. And then the physio you start with is gentle. With your injury where the blood had nowhere to go and flooded all that tissue in your forearm, you've got a much bigger problem. Rebecca was not a just out of school physiotherapist like the one that Morgan consulted in Canada. She was close to Morgan's age, early 40s, and tough as hell. Awesome, I'll leave it there. Yeah, so what can you tell me about those characters that are in here? We've got Morgan, Rebecca, the physiotherapist.
So Morgan is a spy.
Yes.
And she gets shot. It's a horrible, horrible event that takes place. She gets shot. She's in actually northern Canada when that happens. I won't let too much out of the bag there.
Sure.
But she goes to Ireland for a little bit of rest and recuperation, and that's where she meets Rebecca, who's used to treating some of these folks who have dangerous jobs, and she just doesn't put up with anything. So she really gives Morgan as good as Morgan is giving her to make sure that Morgan's actually moving this arm and regaining full use of the arm and is able to go back to her job, because if she doesn't recover properly, her not just her her living is at stake, but her life, like her passion for what she does. She tries to retire as a spy a couple of times and completely fails at it. So she's got to get back on board.
Yeah. And what is that like, just because I know very little about writing in this format, so what is that like, kind of creating the dialogue between these people? Is that where it starts for you, or does it start with the idea of the person and their background, and how does that look for you?
It's a really mixed bag.
Okay.
So I think for some things, I want to convey a feeling or emotion, and so that comes more as the background bits, but I cut a lot of that out of the writing if I can get it in the dialogue. The story is much faster paced for people if there's dialogue and action taking place, and the slower stuff just takes place in my head.
Nice. And then what is it like, kind of weaving in these stakes, I guess, and like those story plot points of what happens, and like what does that look like for you, weaving those things in and together?
For me, I find that really easy. I read a lot, and that's one of the things that we stress for new writers is read a lot, so you can see how well other writers do that and how much more engaging the book is when you can do that. So you can, I have deliberately sat there with a sheet to say, okay, here this is happening, this has got to be a crisis, this has got to be some kind of resolution point, to deliberately make sure that the reader stays in the story.
And I'm always blown away by like the arc of stories and how people navigate that part of the process and creative journey. And especially, you had mentioned, like, this is a 4-book series. And so you said that these pieces can be read individually, but if people take the time, there is an arc throughout the 4. What is it like? Do you have the entire arc in mind already at the start of book 1? Or like, how does that change? What does that look like for you?
I had the arc figured out until about book 3, because originally it was going to be a 3-book series, and there were just so many fun opportunities to create a 4th book, and I had introduced a dog by then, so I wanted to really play with the dog side of it. But yeah, you have to kind of, or for me, I had to have it coordinated. So I use a couple of pieces of writing software to help me keep track of all that and keep track of the characters and attributes, like how long is their hair, what color are their eyes, or what have you, so that I don't lose touch on anything. I don't want somebody to start out being 5'7" and a brunette and at some point changing them to be 5'10" and a redhead. So yeah.
Kind of continuity aspect of it. Yeah. Nice. Awesome. I know there's plenty more that we could dive into in that series alone, but we have quite a few things to touch on. So our next thing that we're going to touch on is Maggie's song. Can you just give me a broad overview of this piece again before we dive inside?
So Maggie is a young woman that gets her heart broken. She's out on Vancouver Island for a summer course. She's in the military, and she's out there for a music course, which, if anybody knows me, that sounds familiar. That's because, yeah, that's where I started, with something very familiar, but to create a fun story. So she gets her heart broken. She meets somebody else, and he's falling madly in love with her, but she's about to leave from the course and being out there all summer, and he kind of wants to know how she feels.
And again, before I dive in, I what is that like, balancing, yes, you know, elements of your own story and yourself in your writing, and versus fictionalizing things, or completely making other things up? Like, what is that like for you? Because it sounds quite vulnerable, you know. So
it can be very vulnerable, and sometimes I would just not put those pieces in. But I think to create a story that's relatable for people, you want to have elements of somebody's real life and emotion and growth and all of those things in that story. So start with where you are, combine with all these other books that I've read and what I've learned, and Maggie popped out of there.
Yeah. And I know in your interview with Michael, you talked about, you know, being curious about people and hearing their stories and experiences, and then politely asking if you can use those, and obviously tweak them a bit, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Did any of that occur in this book? Can you recall?
There is a little bit because of the work that she's doing, and also when I was in the military as a young 20-year-old, there's all kinds of relationships being formed. That you've got young people meeting each other, they're having intense periods of working together, so they're also falling in love and doing all of those things. So yeah, some of that fills that for sure.
Nice. Okay, we'll dive in here. Again, a random bookmarked page, and we'll see what we hear. Okay. They had driven out to the lagoon near the Fisgard lighthouse and were feeding the ducks that were also out that early in the morning. "How are you feeling about us?" he asked quietly. "I'm feeling really good about us," she said, looking over at him. "Why do you ask?" "What I really mean is, well, I need to tell you that I really like you, and I am wondering if you are leaving at the end of the summer and leaving me completely, or can we try to keep things going like they are, but in a long-distance kind of way?" he asked nervously. Her heart went out to him. "I'm not sure what to do, to be honest. I have another year of school. Your job takes you away a lot. Some people say long-distance relationships are really tough, and others say they can work if you really love each other. I've been avoiding thinking about it because I'm really not sure how to handle it." Nice.
You're really good at reading,
Oh, no.
like just cold like that.
Oh,
That's
yes.
great.
Yes, I am reading these cold. No, that's awesome. And I get the sense of what you're talking about if it can come out through dialogue. Because there's very little in here that is like, you know, there's the "he asked nervously," like there's a bit of indicating what the emotion might be, but really trying to capture their emotional state and where they are in the story through the dialogue. And yeah, it's quite intimate, like in this one specifically. And so what comes to mind for me there is just that idea of like, how many times do you reread these things? Or like, do you get numb to that at some point? Or is there feedback that reminds you like, oh, right, like this is the core of that scene or that part of the story?
I think you can get numb to it because when you're reading your own work, you don't see the mistakes, or you see too many nuances that a reader may not get. And so my practice around that is to put it away for a couple of days. I know other writers that like to send it to what they call their alpha readers or their beta readers. I'm not really in that practice. That kind of came along more recently than I got into it. I'll put it away for a couple of days. I'll maybe have one person that I'm very close to read stuff and see what they think. And I also look at sort of other types of writing. Like if you read Maeve Binchy or Charles Dickens, they got a lot of words in their writing. There's a lot going on. And I'm more likely to let the reader form their ideas about that and let the dialogue drive it. The essential stuff is written in there, but I like the dialogue driven, because to me then I can form a picture in my head and it's like I'm watching a movie, but I'm reading it out of the book.
And my dad reads a lot, and you know, one of the things he says is that the way that he imagines it, or the way somebody might imagine this, is going to be different from the next person, or different from the way that you actually imagine it in your head. And I think that's really beautiful, and that you're able to provide people with that opportunity. So,
well, thank you. Yeah, it creates a different experience for everybody.
And I didn't do this before we dived in, but the cover, was there a specific inspiration behind this? What was the choice?
This is the Fisgard Lighthouse. So you were reading about the Fisgard Lighthouse. It's the oldest lighthouse in Western Canada. It's still there on the coast of the west coast, just outside of Victoria, in a place called Esquimalt, which is where the naval base is there. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. Very cool. Awesome. We'll move swiftly along to something that I believe is kind of like in limbo-esque territory right now, at
Sure
least.
is.
And so, yeah, that's Finding Felicity. What can you tell us currently about that piece? Yeah.
So I thought I would print Finding Felicity with a new printer to see, you know, as a Canadian author, can I get a really good publishing and distribution experience going on that's maybe different than what we've been doing for the past 10, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in limbo. So the files were all loaded up. I've been in touch with the printer to say, like, where's the book? What's going on? So this story is another strong female lead. She decides she's going to use a dating site. So her name's not actually Felicity, but her name on the dating site is Felicity. And she gets into all kinds of trouble. It's actually the first one that I've done that's not based in Canada. She lives in Seattle because I thought it might be fun to kind of broaden horizons that way. I did release it as a novella to my newsletter list 2 Christmases ago because I love to have a new Christmas story. And I thought, okay, I'm going to release it in book form so I can have it here at the bookstore. I can take it to book signings. And it's just not here yet. But it's coming. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And 2 of the things that stand out to me in there are yeah, writing, you know, in Seattle somewhere. I'm curious if you have experience there or if you're just broadening your horizons, like you say. Do you have thoughts on that right away? Or?
I do, because I know I connect better when I write about places I've been. So I try to have been to every place that I write about. I love Seattle. It's just a funky, eclectic kind of place. There's so much going on. And so it seemed like a perfect place to set her story. But there are places that I have not been in some of my stories, like Russia and Ukraine, which are in the Spy series. I haven't been there. I'll get there one day.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I feel like there's some discussion among writer circles sometimes about the setting being an additional character. And I feel like I can write about the setting if I've been there and I can feel it. There's scenes in Border Pieces in Halifax where it's raining and it blows sideways and all this stuff. And yeah, I lived there, so I understand that. And it's fun to write about that way too.
Nice. I do think that is the time that we have. So I really appreciate you sharing your work with us and insight into your process and just getting to know you a bit. So thank you so much for your time and energy.
Oh, this was really fun. I really appreciate meeting both of you, and it's been a great experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This has been Tell Us Story Hives on location in Medicine Hat at Unlimited Characters. I'm Daniel J. Perryman.
This is
Pam Robertson Rivet saying bye for now.